Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Yankee and the Brit. I'm Jay. He's Maddie. We're here to talk about the Dallas Cowboys defense. And I'm betting we're just going to disagree. So, Maddie, I'll let you start.
All right, so I am a lifelong Cowboy fan. Well, like an NFL lifelong Cowboy fan, which is a big deal in the UK. Like you don't get many lifelong fans of many NFL teams, but I love everything Dallas Cowboys, and I haven't been alive since they've been to an NFC Championship game. I totally understand that. I think they've been robbed in a few games, but you know, and I'm a bit annoyed about the rhetoric that's going around the NFL at the minute that Dallas are going to have a terrible defense again this year just because they're not spending big money. And I got put into that trap. I remember texting you, Jay, when they couldn't get Justin Simmons away from Denver, when Anthony Harris moved and he didn't move to the Dallas Cowboys. I was like, oh, here we go. We're going to be garbage again. And then I sat down and I've watched the film of our new signings and I'm like, okay, yeah, they'd like, I'm not saying we've signed like amazing players that are going to take us from the basement of just being absolutely terrible in the secondary to being a top 10 defense or anything like that. But I just don't think we're going to be as bad. And I'm saying that very unconfidently because the Dallas Cowboys have a way of just, they look like their roster is going to be amazing and then they're awful. They've done that for the past 3 seasons. So we'll see how this kind of turns out. I think Dan Quinn is a definite upgrade from Mike Nolan. Even though Dan Quinn was part of the defense in Atlanta that sucked last year. But Mike Nolan, in my personal opinion, didn't seem like a very intelligent football coach from what he was doing last year. Like the rest of his career, Mike Nolan's been a good defensive coach. But what he did was, in the year where it's most difficult, decided to completely change the Dallas Cowboys system into a complex system where Brandon Marshall said when he was at Denver and there was a Mike Nolan system in, on the Saturdays before the game, they would all have scripts out and nobody knew what was going on. Why are you doing that in a COVID year? Why are you making up something so complex in a COVID year? In 2019, they were the 11th ranked defense. So you take the 11th ranked defense, right? Like with the offense the way it is, if they had the 11th ranked defense, they would have won the NFC East. They would have had a playoff game, you know? But they didn't. They changed everything up in a year of COVID, and that's ridiculous. And I'm not saying Mike Nolan's a bad football coach. I'm just saying that is not good football IQ.
I am saying Dan Quinn is a bad football coach.
Right, okay.
I don't think I got to say anymore. They're going to be worse. And I think that them not picking up Nolan's system has more to say about the intelligence of the players being drafted than it does the system. If everybody's standing around and has no idea what's going on, who's the leader? Who's the guy who's the coach on the field? Who's the guy that should have been on a Zoom call with Mike Nolan for 12 hours a day, making sure the rest of the team, when they get there, understands it? I don't know. I think leadership's a big problem. And I know people throw out names of leaders, but it seems to me when I talk to Cowboy fans, and I'm not pointing you out because I haven't even asked you this, but when you go like, who's the leader of their team, they just throw out big names. And you're like, well, why are they a leader? And nobody can give you an answer. And I think that's a lot of the problem. I think the secondary's awful. Awful.
The secondary is bad.
Where are you going to get pass rush from?
The pass rush should be better this year. I'm just putting that out there. The pass rush should be better.
Didn't they let Aldon Smith walk?
They let Aldon Smith walk, but Aldon Smith started the season well. I know he hasn't played for 5 years, and I am upset that they let Aldon Smith walk, but he didn't have the gas to make it past week 4. And I know he's been out for 5 years, but he didn't do anything after week 4. And I liked Aldon Smith. I am upset that they let him walk, but Randy Gregory's still there. Lawrence's D-Law is still there. I think watch out on Neville Gallimore, the defensive tackle. Watch out on him. Big interior defensive lineman who was overshadowed by like Dontari Poe being there. And then when they let him in for the season, he disrupted, and they were still terrible against the rush. That's the biggest problem. They're awful against the rush, which means that you're stuck in your pass rush. So they need to fix the rush defense before they can really work on their pass rush. But they've got the big names, and I think Terrell Basham, like, he's a good addition. Like, in the rotation, I think he's a good, like, second, third line defensive line. I'm not saying that they're going to be going and sacking quarterbacks, being amazing top 10 defense. I just don't think they're going to be terrible.
I don't think they have any depth at linebacker. And
yeah,
Dan Quinn's defense is only going to look better because the offense is going to be better. I think your defense got crushed because your offense was fucking terrible.
Well, no, they got crushed in games where our offense was unbelievable. Like, they got crushed in games against Seattle where Dak was absolutely going off, where Dak was on an MVP.
That's Dak. That's my point.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. But they were getting crushed in those games. They lost against Seattle when Dak was throwing absolute bombs. They lost against the Rams when Dak was throwing bombs. Like,
you're going to lose to Seattle 10 out of 10 times last year.
I agree with you, but they lost because of the defense. They were still lost against Atlanta. They should have lost against Atlanta, even though they were like, Dak was again pulled them out of the ship. But Atlanta scored points on them. They were terrible the entire season until Mike Nolan made his defense more simple.
No, you're missing the whole fucking point. The point is, you were going to get beat 10 times out of 10 by Seattle no matter what happened. So you can't judge the defense on a team that was going to crush you anyway. So if you look at all of the other games, the defense was on the field way too long because the offense was garbage. And I'm not saying the defense was good, but it was even worse because when you're 3 and out, when you can't pick up, like, when you can't run the ball, when you can't eat the clock, all that does is hurt your defense. So just by default of having Dak back, your defense will look better, but in reality, you're going to have a worse coach. And I think you guys are going to go, well, you can't go 500 anymore, but right around there. I don't think it's going to be a big upgrade. I think the upgrade is Dak Prescott for your defense, not anything on the defense.
I agree with you in the sense it's not going to be a good, a big upgrade. And with what you're saying at linebacker, if they move, they've brought in Neal and they've brought in Curse, who can both play linebacker, safety in the box kind of guys. You know, they are bringing in players. They're bringing in more depth on the defense. I do think they are going to be missing that one big name, and I do wish they brought in the big name. But I just think it can't be worse than last season. And hearing people come on and say, oh, the Dallas Cowboys defense is going to be terrible again. They've not made additions. People like Skip Bayless, who is just like, don't listen to Skip Bayless. He's a fucking idiot. But like, when he comes on and like bangs the desk and being like, Jerry Jones said there was going to be a big slice of pie. Where's my big defender and stuff? And it's like, well, maybe they're kind of like just building pieces and they've got some guys who can do the job. Like, it might be nice one season to have a roster to when people look at the roster to kind of say like, oh, that's not going to be good. And then they come out and they play well. And then if you add a guy like Caleb Farley and Patrick Surtain, then you kind of help fix the cornerback's position by Thanksgiving. I'm not going to say they're going to come in and change it overnight, but like, they'll eventually get used to playing in the NFL, and those kind of guys look NFL ready. And Trayvon Diggs, you agreed with me before this, is going to have a big upgrade this season. So there's a potential lockdown corner. Donovan Wilson is an absolute monster who just throws around massive hits in the secondary. I think the secondary is definitely going to upgrade, not because of the players that they brought in, but because the players they already had have been there a bit longer. And I have a lot more confidence in the Dallas defense than people seem to have in the mainstream media.
Jaron Curse will help you in the red zone. Jaron Curse will be fine to move down to linebacker on passing, but you can't move Neal or Curse into a linebacker position on a running down, or when you need short yardage. So that's where the depth at linebacker, and it's a lot of some age coming on of your linebackers too. I don't know, man. we got to come up with some bet because and we don't have to come up with it today, but before the year, I'm willing to bet that the Cowboys do not have a top 10 defense next year.
Oh, no, I agree with you. Right. Okay. Here we go. I'll drink 5 shots of tequila on this podcast if the Cowboys don't have a top 20 defense next year. A top 20 is an improvement. I said they're going to be improved.
That 6 of your games are against the worst teams in the NFL.
Yeah, we were Jay, we were like 30th in rushing this year. I've said at the start of this, they're not going to be stellar, but everybody's like, oh, they're going to be dreadful. They're going to be 30th in rush defense again. They're going to be 20. We were 28th in the pass and 30th. If you're not top 10, you're awful. That's so ridiculous. If we had our defense from 2019, who were 11th ranked, we would have easily won that division. Right, top 15.
How many teams win Super Bowls with a defense that's not top 10?
I don't think that we're going to win the Super Bowl. I'm just saying it's not going to be as bad. Right, okay,
see,
let's do
you
this.
You have a different bar than I do because your bar is set way lower than mine.
I just think with the offense that we potentially have, a top, and in the division that we need, a top 20 gets us to
if that's the bar, I agree. If that's the bar, I agree.
Okay, cool. Right. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at the sheet, and I'm thinking if Neil doesn't die from an Achilles injury, if Caleb Farley falls to them at 10 and gets past Denver at 9, or if Patrick Surtain is as good as we hope he is, then we'll have a top 10 defense.
I got a question.
Okay? Go on.
And it's a broad ass question, but you're looking at your team right now, and I'm not arguing. I don't agree that they're going to win your division, but I agree they could win your division. Okay. So do you think they even have a chance of winning the division in any of the other NFC divisions? Like, you think they're better?
Let's go for them. So
the Packers,
they won't beat the Packers. They won't beat Tampa. And who's in the West? The Rams,
Seattle, or
no.
the Rams.
No.
Okay.
And then they would
know where you thought they sat, so that's where I was asking.
That's the thing. There's a very low expectation on the Cowboys, and I kind of like it. But see, the NFC East has improved a lot this year.
Where I live, maybe it's looked at different, but they're America's team. So every year they're like, we're going to the Super Bowl. We're going to the Super Bowl. We're going to the Super Bowl.
I think this season's a failure if they don't make it to the NFC Championship game. But I also don't expect them to make it to the NFC Championship game, if you get what I mean. So like every season I start and I'm like, yeah, they're going to make it to the NFC Championship game. That's my expectation. And then I'm not like, for those of you who don't know, I live in a place in the northeast of England where the football team I support were in the Premier League 4 seasons ago and then got relegated twice, which is unheard of. So my expectations of sporting greatness have lowered drastically, apart from Wales just won the Six Nations in rugby, and I'm disappointed because they didn't win something called the Grand Slam. Now, I'm speaking gibberish to a lot of people here. The Grand Slam in rugby is where you win every game. They didn't win every game. They lost against France, but they still won the league, like the championship. So I have high expectations in some sports, and I think Dallas Cowboys on my side of high expectations, but I've never seen them make an NFC Championship game. I've never been alive since they've done that.
I should have asked you your expectations before we started because I almost walked out of the room on you. But see, I was looking at it from this aspect. Wow, I can't even talk today. The aspect of every Cowboys fan I speak to here every year, even my godson, I got to hear it. Super Bowl.
The British are more realistic than that.
Yeah, my godson's a huge Cowboys fan. So it's just like, that's where I thought you were coming from. So you got some eye rolls and shit out of me. But
hang on. I still think they're going to win the division. I'm just putting that out there. That
I
still
believe it's
disappointed
possible,
if they don't win the division.
but I got the football team.
I'm willing to take a bet on that.
We'll see. We'll have to figure out the bet. And right before the season, when we give everybody our picks, maybe we'll have a good bet.
I'm willing to take. I'm willing to take a bet on that.
Drinking 5 shots of tequila, I don't think is a punishment.
I was like, we'll go. I was like, we'll definitely up it from there. I was giving you a place to go up. I was like,
okay,
starting with 5 and giving you a place to go up from there.
Well, you're a man of my own heart with the tequila, but I don't know. I guess where it comes to me is I just don't like Dan Quinn at all.
Yeah,
at all.
I have issues. I wasn't psyched about the hire of Dan Quinn, but he can't be worse than what Mike Nolan did last season. I'm not saying Mike Nolan's a terrible coach. I'm just saying what he did last season shows that he doesn't have a high footballing IQ. And you know what I think about Mike McCarthy's football IQ? I just don't think I'm not confident in the coaching staff. I'm confident in the players. And I kind of like Kellen Moore as an offensive.
It's still going to have to be kind of Mike Nolan's defense because it takes 3 to 5 years to install a whole new system.
I don't know. You can kind of just tear out.
Going to have to come in and keep the base of what they're doing while adding his own shit.
No, I think you
want it to be the same thing you just went through last year.
Well, no, I think you can just tear out whatever. You can just say to the players, forget what Mike Nolan did last year. We're going back to the Seattle defense, which is what they were running before Mike Nolan got there. And then Dan Quinn's from Seattle, like Pete.
You made that sound so much easier with an install. I mean, because even if you know the verbiage, okay?
Yeah.
You were speaking English and then you went to speaking Spanish for a while and constantly, and now they're like, speak English again.
Yeah, but if they never really picked up on Spanish.
Which I think just all of it up, right? But okay.
It's a lot easier to speak English and then try and pick up Spanish and fail and then just say, oh, never mind, I'll just go back to speaking English again, because they never picked up the speaking of Spanish. And also, just one last thing that I want to put forward before we finish this. Just remember, the Dallas Cowboys were never able to take away a football. Like, it's not been something we've ever been able to do for years and years and years. And in the last 4, 5, 6 games of the season, they got the most takeaways in the NFL. So I just want to put that out there. The defense did show signs of improvement. And I'm big on Diggs. I'm big on Wilson. And from the film that I've watched, Caleb Farley's number 1 cornerback off the board. And then it's Patrick Surtain. Sorry, Chris Sims. I love you, man. But I believe that Patrick Surtain's the number 2, not the number 3. But, so we'll see what happens from there. And now we all know that Jerry Jones is just going to pick like a tight end or wide receiver, running back, something stupid like that at number 10.
Kelvin Mond. No, I'm just kidding.
Kellen Mond. All of this goes out the window. Well,
I think on the bright side, your offense is going to be better for you. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Dak's got a leg, so that's...
Well,
so that's
also, they brought Mike McCarthy in there because the West Coast system fits Dak. It doesn't fit Andy Dalton as well as it fit Dak. So, and Andy Dalton's not the same caliber quarterback.
We'll have to break down. We'll have to break down QB1 for the
if you can protect Dak, that's where I think he'll be at his best. So
yeah, and I don't buy all this stuff of the offensive line can't protect Dak. I don't buy it. You don't. No, just
but here's the thing: is you have a lot of turnover, so it's almost you got to prove it.
Yeah, exactly.
Get what I'm saying?
No, I agree with you. I just don't like the Dallas Cowboys have proven that they're able to draft offensive linemen. They're able to train offensive linemen. Like they know what they're doing on the offensive line. And if they can stop, it's the injuries that affected them last season on the offensive line rather than the lack of talent. But it's not as good as it once was. So once people see stuff that's not as good as it once was, they think it's absolutely terrible. So,
right. And it's how does, some of these guys come back from the injuries and who takes over for, whoever leaves. And
yeah, it's like, can we get a little bit of depth? Yeah.
Yeah, that was going to say, and from last year, depth always helps. But
yeah, can we get a little bit of depth? That's the only problem with the offense. Just a little bit of depth on the offensive line. And Ezekiel Elliott, can you actually run? Can Ezekiel Elliott actually just open up the taps and run?
I blame that on Andy Dalton.
Problem. What on Andy Dalton?
Zeke. Now there's two ways to look at it when it comes to running. Sometimes you run to suck them safeties down to open up the pass.
Yeah, they've
Sometimes
just got everyone
you
in
have
the
to
box.
throw to get the safeties back to open up the run, which nobody did Zeke any help last year. And I think he had an off year. I think
he had an off year. I think he'll be fine.
But I think it has a lot to do with when Dak was there, safeties had to stay back farther. When Andy Dalton was there, they moved up, and I think that really hurt the run game.
The other thing about the run is Dak can run, so you've got to watch Dak for the run as well. So the read option.
And I don't mean Andy Dalton came in there and sabotaged him. I just mean Andy Dalton's style play didn't help.
Yeah, I thought Andy Dalton did a good job last year, considering where he got put.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that's my little rant at the mainstream media about the Dallas Cowboys. Over. We're going to get so many comments now being like, oh, I hate this podcast. My sucks. Like, hate the Dallas Cowboys. Like, I agree with Jay. The Dallas Cowboys are garbage. They're going to be terrible. Like,
I hope so.
Yeah. Give it to me, guys.
It's pretty split 50-50. I just don't believe that the Cowboys, if you took a poll, are truly America's team anymore. I think it's probably Green Bay or Pittsburgh. But
we'll see who plays the most primetime games.
I mean fans spread out through the U.S. now. It used to be, and there still is Cowboy fans everywhere, but it's amazing how many Steelers and Packer fans are everywhere now. Is right.
We're a global podcast, and I'm just telling you, the Cowboys are America's team around the world. Like, if I went to my friends and showed them. They're the world's team. We'll go for that, which sounds better than American's team. If I went and said to just a random person in the streets of the UK, name an American football team, they would say the Dallas Cowboys.
I believe that's what they marketing would say. Is out
Jerry
of this
Jones
world.
Jerry Jones is an absolute legend when it comes to that. He just needs to sometimes butt his nose out of football business, but he's proven in football business he knows what he's doing. But that's a podcast for another time. This was about the Dallas Cowboys defense not being as bad as what the media says it's going to be. And I'm going to say, the more I thought about it, the more I'm going like, they'll be top 15, like between 15 and 20, which isn't amazing, but is much better than it was this year and much better than what bloody Skip Bayless thinks it's going to be. Idiot.
Well, there's a good place to end it. All right, everybody. Thanks for checking us out. You can find us on Facebook and YouTube. All right, guys. One world, one love. Deuces.
Cheerio.